It'd be easy to dismiss a trainer like this as being a budget brand trainer that you've never heard of before. Except you have heard of JetBlack before. If you've heard of the Zwift Hub, Zwift's own trainer, that was a JetBlack Volt. This is not the Volt though, this is the Victory, which simply takes the Volt, tweaks a few things, adds a crap ton of features, and then cuts the price down to $399. This trainer isn't just competing with trainers at $500, $600, $700, $800, but frankly, it's competing with trainers at $1,000 and even $1,500. So I'm gonna go ahead and dive into what this trainer is and isn't. I'm gonna go through all the specs, all the features, all the functions, but this is not a review. It's not titled a review up there, it's not in the thumbnail anywhere else, because this is not a final unit. This is the pre-production unit straight off the factory floor to me, with all the little tiny quirks that you'd expect from pre-production units. Meanwhile, probably around the August timeframe, I will drop my full in-depth review where I'll dive into all the nuances. So let's talk about what this trainer is. Here's the core specs right there. And when I say the core specs, I kind of mean it by accident there. Not just the kicker core specs, but also these specs as well. They pretty much mirror each other. So you're looking at the ability to simulate 16% grades, you're looking at the same max wattage realm that you would on the kicker core, and you're looking at a relatively similar flywheel weight. Except here, it's not technically a flywheel anymore. It's called a fly disc. And so the difference there, if you look at something like the Wahoo Kicker Core right here, or the Zwift Hub 1, this entire thing is a flywheel, this whole piece right there, versus if we back up right here, instead of this being a flywheel, only this part there spins, thus the disc portion. Now, the reason for that is, of course, avoiding some of Wahoo's patents. You may remember back when Wahoo sued Zwift, they also technically sued JetBlack at the time because JetBlack made the trainer that Zwift was being sued from by Wahoo. Of course, all those lawsuits have been dropped by Wahoo against both JetBlack as well as against Zwift, but nonetheless, JetBlack just simply ensured they weren't anywhere near that with this new design here. But of course, a standout feature on this trainer isn't all the existing kicker core style specs that you see up there, but also the inclusion of Wi-Fi. We've seen Wi-Fi included on a bunch of other trainers out there, and the main benefit, of course, to using Wi-Fi as opposed to ANT Plus or Bluetooth Smart is to basically remove any interference type issues that you sometimes see when connecting between ANT Plus and Bluetooth Smart devices to apps like Zwift. Oddly enough, it's the Wi-Fi interference that causes the drops, but also the Wi-Fi that solves for it. In addition, there's also a USB-C port in the back that allowed direct connectivity between the trainer as well as apps across that USB-C connection. That part is still a little bit fuzzy. Many companies over the years have promised USB connections at shows like Eurobike this week and then never actually delivered on that. From a protocol standpoint, that's actually harder than these companies tend to realize, so we'll have to see how that piece sorts itself out. But of course, we're not done talking about new things here. This also includes the Zwift Cog, but not just any Zwift Cog, the Zwift Cog V2. That cog is different from existing past Zwift cogs, including ones on the Zwift Hub itself, as well as the Wahoo Kicker Core, and that this now has indexing support. With the original Zwift cog, there was no ability to tweak that alignment. So if things weren't quite lining up, you were kind of out of luck a little bit. You had to go ahead and deal with it from a derailleur standpoint, or simply not at all. Here though, the way this works is you have these two little notches right there. You just use your hand to move them. There's 10 different alignment notches. So listen as I go through this. And at the very end, that big snap is when it resets back to the beginning. You can see kind of this up close in this video right here. I had no problems aligning this to be like whisper quiet, which by the way, this is whisper quiet. Here's a quick little video of that. Just a quick voice test here without the microphone on so you can hear what this sounds like. Very, very quiet. Now, this Zwift cog will become the de facto cog used for Zwift going forward from sometime later on this summer. What's interesting about that though is that this trainer is the first trainer to be so-called Zwift Ready. It's actually like a certification program of sorts, and the JetBlack Victory is the first company through that. Of course, the criteria for that is relatively low. It means that you've got virtual shifting with a Zwift cog, as well as a click that's included up there. That is different than the old school Zwift certified program from years past. And actually, now to think about it, it's really not all that different, except in that program in the past, there was no criteria whatsoever. You just bought yourself a sticker to put on the box, and that was it. At least this one, you have to have these two pieces there, and Zwift has to confirm those two pieces at least technically work. In terms of things like accuracy and all that kind of stuff, that isn't technically part of the program. At least Zwift hasn't made that public anyways. But this trainer has higher accuracy specs than Zwift's own Zwift Hub. So that's probably not too much of a concern. Now, the next thing to note is a pretty interesting stat, which is that 79.9% of the people watching this video right now are not subscribed. That's a pretty disappointing stat. And it means that you're going to miss out on all the Eurobike goodness coming out this week and over the next little while, and the full review and all that kind of goodness. It'd really be super helpful if you were to just hit the subscribe button or the ding dong bell or the like, whatever. Just hit some button down there in the bottom. That's all I'm asking, folks. It's pretty straightforward. Now, because it does have this Zwift Cog there, that means you are effectively tied to just Zwift. And the reason is all your shifting isn't done via the shift levers up here on your bike, but instead done via the Zwift Click or the Zwift Play controllers if you have that. That means in order to shift gears, you press this little button up and down right there, and you virtually shift gears. So it's not physically changing anything in the back there, it's simply changing the feel of that within the app, and of course all the physics along with that as well. And of course this has been out for about a year now or something like that within the Zwift Hub series, and the Click and the Cog there, and now it's again on the Zwift Cog V2 as well. That does though mean that you can't use this particular cog and virtual shifting arrangement with other apps, like Indevelo, for example, or MyWhoosh, or Be Cool, or Kingdom App, whatever other apps you want out there that have normal simulation style, this won't work. But you can simply take off this particular cog cassette. All it is basically a cassette back there. You can take it off and put on your own 11-speed cassette. Typically, it's about 50 bucks or so. And if you want to put a 12-speed cassette on there, you need the adapter. It's about 40 bucks or so. But again, that's all still way cheaper than any other bike trainer out there that's going to include support for a 12-speed cassette or even 11-speed cassette. So it doesn't really matter from a cost standpoint if you want to rip this off and just treat it like a normal trainer. Because at the end of the day, this trainer is broadcasting the standard AMP Plus and Bluetooth Smart specs across both power as well as trainer control and all of that goodness. Nothing there is like proprietary to Zwift except for virtual shifting using these two little buttons up here, controlling that down there in the Zwift game itself. Next, 3 quick party tricks that are worthwhile mentioning. The first one is it has Bluetooth heart rate pass-through. So this is Apple TV running right here. This allows me to have a heart rate strap on or for my watch or whatever the case may be. And it'll basically take the heart rate from here, broadcast it through the trainer and back up to Apple TV. The reason you'd want to do that is Apple TV is limited to 2 concurrent connections plus the remote control. And so if you don't have that, you're kind of short a connection when you have one connection from the controls up here, one from the trainer, and then your heart rate pushes that over. So this solves that particular problem and is probably one of the best features on JetBlack's trainers in the past. The next thing is they have race mode. That's a higher frequency transmission mode, 10 Hertz. That's something that again is not offered at any other trainer at this price point. And JetBlack was at the first or the second to do that on their trainers. So super cool to see that. And the third item is they've added an odometer to the app. So you can see how many miles or virtual miles or kilometers, whatever it is that you want that you've ridden on this particular trainer. And now actually to think about it, there's one more party trick, which is that it's totally compatible with the Zwift frame. So the Zwift frame is the big frame portion of the Zwift Ride setup that was announced a few weeks ago. As when they announced it, they said it would be compatible with other things that have the Zwift Cog, and this is one of those other things. I had no problems mounting that on here, hooking it up, getting Zwift going, like all that worked just great. So later on this summer, when Zwift starts selling the Zwift frame by itself, as opposed to the entire ride package, that would allow you to go ahead and put the Zwift frame on this trainer if you want instead. And of course, one of the core reasons you probably want to do that is for the bar tape down there on the handle. I mean, how cool is that? Like, how come no one else has done that before? All the stupid trainer handles, or trainers that don't have handles for that matter, put bar tape on there. Like it is on brand for a bike trainer to have that there. Note that once the final production unit hits, all of the different orange colors that you see there will match precisely. I suspect you can't see it on the camera because the phone does things to make this all look the same, but in reality, these are 3 slightly different shades there. But JetBlack has confirmed that when they do start shipping, they will all be the exact same Pantone color of orange as Zwift. Okay, so last but not least, 2 things that I typically include in in-depth reviews, but I want to at least briefly mention here. The first one is ride feel. This feels basically just like a Kicker Core. By spinning and stuff like that, it's pretty much the same. It should feel exactly the same as a JetBlack Volt V2 as well, because it's the same flywheel weight, or disc wheel weight, if you will. That stuff I will do like side-by-side testing in my final in-depth review down the road. The second item is power accuracy. Now, when they sent this unit to me, they did warn before it even left the factory that this unit has not gone through their full factory calibration of sorts, and thus the power values aren't necessarily going to be super correct. And
I actually just got a new firmware as I'm running out the door to Eurobike. I threw it for a quick 15-minute test, and accuracy looks pretty good. They noted beforehand that some of the sprints would be a bit chopped off right now until they get the very final firmware, but that was pretty minor. Everything else within a couple watts of the Favero Asiamo MX pedals. But certainly I'm gonna do more testing on that once I get back from Eurobike and validate a bunch more things.
obviously, as part of my in-depth review, I will do that. And since you can't even buy it until my in-depth review probably hits, then there's nothing to really worry about at this point in time. At least if you're a consumer. If you're a competitor, I'd be pretty worried about this. I think this is going to be an incredibly difficult trainer to beat from a price standpoint. When I talked to JetBlack about the pricing, they noted that they designed this trainer with that $399 pricing in mind. And I know you'll probably see comments on the internet saying, what about the race to the bottom and all that kind of fun stuff and pricing, etc. And here's the thing, JetBlack's been making better trainer than most of their competitors for years, whether at this price or any other price point. As I've shown countless times over the year, don't judge a company, especially a sports tech company, purely by their marketing budgets. This is a case of a company that spends probably not enough money on marketing, instead spends it on making really good affordable trainers, and trainers that are just as good as the competition. Otherwise, companies like Zwift wouldn't have bought and rebranded their trainers as their own. In any case, I am looking forward to putting this thing through the ringer over the course of the summer, once I've got a final production unit and final production firmware, and seeing if it really lives up to all the claim and all the hypes and all that kind of good stuff. I suspect it will, but then again, I've also seen things flop at the end of the day. So who knows? Well, I mean, I probably know, but we'll have to see. With that, if you found this video interesting, there is tons more coming here from Eurobike. Well, Eurobike when I get there anyways. All sorts of other sports technology goodness that you don't want to miss out on. With that, have a good one.